Welcome to 5-flower corsage part 2. So now we're going to put it all together. You should have 5 mini corsages or boutonnieres, whatever you'd like to call them. And you should have your top bow, your bottom bow, your middle bow, and your wire loop bow. So as you look at these, you're going to take your bottom bow and your wire loop bow, and you're going to decide which one you like better. You don't need both of them for this project, you just need one. Having them both was an opportunity to learn a couple different ways to make a nice big bow, but you only need one for this project. So I'm going to keep my wire loop bow. I just like the size of it better, so I'm going to set my bottom bow aside. Now the next thing you're going to do is you're going to arrange. You're gonna, see if I can make this, there you go, that's a little better. You're gonna arrange your 5 mini boutonnieres by size. You're gonna take the smallest one, and then you're gonna go in order of size, having the largest one at the bottom of your row. So I've got all 5 here in a row. And then I'm gonna take my top bow and set it up near my smallest one. I'm gonna take my middle bow and put it in the 4th place spot after the first 2 corsages. And then I'm going to take the large bow, the wire loop bow, and I'm going to set it here at the end of my little grouping. And what I want to talk to you about a little bit is the center vertical axis. So you kind of have an imaginary visual line that goes down the middle of your design. And this will be, we talked about that when we talked about the principles of elements of design, and we talked about balance. This is going to be an asymmetrically balanced project, but you do still want it to be balanced. It's not going to be that mirror image on both sides, but you don't want it to get heavier on one side of that center vertical axis than the other. So you're kind of going back and forth on the center vertical axis. So in the end, our corsage will probably be, you know, somewhere around this big, kind of like an oval. And you kind of imagine if there was a dotted line going down the middle, that center vertical axis, it wouldn't look lopsided on one side or the other, even though it will not be symmetrical. It will be asymmetrical. Okay, so we're going to start with our top bow and our smallest carnation. And we are going to wiggle these around together and arrange them so the top bow just pokes out, there we go, of the top of that first little corsage. And then we're going to tape it just enough so that it holds together. And you might actually find that it almost holds all the way together just by pressing the floral tape together. But it's more secure if you add a little bit of floral tape. So now working on that center vertical axis, because the bow is over on this side, we're going to put the next bow on the other side. We're going to come right under this bow, and we're going to add the next flower. It's going to be a little lopsided at first, but we're going to balance that out. You don't want to stack your flowers right on top of each other. Students have a tendency to put them together really tight, and they have a tendency to be looking down at them like this, and they want it to look really pretty as they're looking down at that, and that makes sense, I understand. But remember, there should be an ugly side to this project because it's going to go flat against, this is a one-sided arrangement, a one-sided design. It's going to go flat against something else, so it should have an ugly backside. And you want to have enough space between your components so that you can see each thing, each component of the design. Each part of the design, you want it to have its own space. And because these are wired, you can tip them and move them around so that they're just in the right position. So we want that leather leaf to be on the outside. We're going to come down so you have a little bit of space between each flower. That openness is what's going to make it look really interesting. Remember when we talked about rhythm in Principles and Elements of Design, it's how your eye moves throughout the design. If everything is right on top of each other, your eye doesn't move anywhere. There's no movement. Okay, so if it squishes together, I'm actually going to open that up a little bit again. So now you can see on my center vertical axis, that's actually already looking pretty sweet. That in order for me to keep maintaining that asymmetrical balance, I really need something to go over here. And that's where that next bow, that middle bow, is going to go. Now, if I just tape it in like that, it won't be as interesting as if I pitch it forward a little bit so you can see a little bit more of the shininess. And I'm going to bring that bow right at an angle, and I'm going to tip the wire so it fits right in there in that space, still leaving space in between each element in the design. And now I'm going to tape it together lightly. And you'll see how these two bows really balance each other out. Not too much tape. See how that's coming together? Very sweet. Now, because these things are wired, if you want to move them around a little bit to make them look nicer, you can do that. They're not going to go anywhere. They're wired and they're taped. So now we're going to go back and forth on that center horizontal. We're going to take our next largest flower, and we're going to pitch it underneath this bow. Coming on this side. A little bit of tape. And again, this should have a kind of an oblong shape, not a round shape. It's getting increasingly unattractive on the back side, but increasingly more attractive on the front. So the next place we're going to go is over here. We're going to pitch with our next largest carnation. We're going to make sure we keep pitching that leather leaf to the outside. And as you get down to the bottom, it's okay for your arrangements, your little corsages, to get a little bit closer together, because the weight of the arrangement is going to be at the bottom. And so if they get a little bit closer and there's a little bit more visual weight, that's fine. A little more tape. We're going to tip the wire. Our last little mini corsage, we're actually going to tip it far enough so that the leather leaf gets to the outside. Coming down towards the middle just a little bit. This is when my fingers get a little crampy. I hope your fingers don't get a little crampy. Just a little closer to the middle. There you go. And again, you can move these, you can move them around a little bit as you need to get them just the way you want. Bringing that weight down towards the bottom, getting them a little bit closer as you come down that center vertical axis. And now the final part is to take that bottom bow or the wire loop bow, depending on which one you picked. You're gonna pitch it forward almost so it's a 90-degree angle, and you're gonna tuck that bow right up inside of there, filling in that space, creating that asymmetrical balance. Fluffing the ribbons if you want to. Now this time, you are gonna tape the entire way down. So now you've got all of these semi-wrapped pieces of wire. Some have floral tape, some have, some of the ribbons that we did the other day I've taped the whole way down. But we're going to tape the entire thing together now. I'm going to tape over all of the wires. All the way down to the bottom. There you go. Now we don't want this long. Isn't that lovely? I can move these things around if they're not exactly where I want them. I can bring this to the middle a little bit more so it covers that empty space. I can fluff my bow a little bit nicer. Now you're going to definitely want to curl up this wire on the bottom so that you can't see that. That's not very, the wire itself is not very attractive. And it would take away from your corsage if you kept it sticking out like that. This is something that you would use maybe for a wedding. You could use it for a prom or a retirement party or graduation party. It could be worn on the chest. And it could also be put onto a wrist corsage. You could attach this. The wrist corsage holders that we have little clamps on them, and this could be clamped right into a wrist corsage and be worn as a wrist corsage. You might want the ribbon up a little bit higher. So, good luck. I'm eager to see how your 5-flower corsage comes out.